I'm really excited to be presenting to you today something called Bridges, a digital resilience toolkit called Bridges, that represents a number of years worth of work at World Education and at my previous organization, Crowded Learning, in terms of pulling together digital skills resources to support programs in different contexts in helping learners, clients, patrons, whoever's coming to your door, develop digital skills that they need for their life, career, education goals. So I am a senior technical advisor at World Education, and in that role, I do a lot of work that focuses on digital skill development, primarily in formal education settings, and within that, adult education settings. Um, but in doing so, thinking about really aligning what digital skills are being taught and how they're being taught, and centering that around learners and making sure that what we're doing is aligning to their goals, is meaningful to them, and then also thinking about digital skills as not being a sideshow, in addition to whatever it is a learner is coming to learn, which may be primarily digital skills. But if we are doing reading instruction, or if we are doing numeracy instruction or GED prep, thinking about how teachers can not only use technology for the benefits that it brings to instruction and to learning, but also doing so while developing digital skills. So not just using technology for technology's sake, but really being mindful about what digital skills both learners and instructors or tutors and trainers are building and using in doing so. And so Bridges brings a lot of that work into one big toolkit. And so we're going to walk through what Bridges is and all of the different components. It's going to be very interactive. We're going to be looking at a set of learners that we'll be focusing our efforts on throughout today's session, on thinking about what skills does this learner need, what types of resources would I use with this learner, so that you have a real sense of all of the components of the toolkit, and then you can take that and use it in your practice. So for our hour together today, we're going to look at why digital skills and why is this really important, and then thinking about how we can take a learner-centered approach. Now, I'm actually going to ask folks in the chat if you could just type really quickly what your role is, your name, your role, and I guess where you are performing that role. I think that would be helpful as well, just so we can all get a sense of who's here and what it is you are doing in terms of teaching and learning. So I'm going to stop for a second there, and if you could just in the chat name, role, and where it is you work. Viv, oh, perfect, awesome. So we have some family literacy librarians, literacy services, literacy coordinator, adult librarian. Okay, good. This aligns to what I'd expected. And so a lot of folks are working with English language development, family literacy, within the library system. So that makes sense. So obviously you're coming to this probably aware both of the digital skills that patrons may need and learners may need in order to access or fully take the benefits of what is available to them through your organization and through the library system, but then also in considering what's going to be useful for them and what they're able to use, depending on if it's a physical book or physical resources or online resources. And so just even thinking about that, like what are the needs of folks coming in and what are some of the challenges, I think is a good way to frame your approach to our discussion today, because we're going to be looking at tools that are in Bridges for identifying digital skills, and then tools that are available for building digital skills. And we recognize that that's different for different people in different contexts. So, a lot of times I'm presenting to classroom instructors, and so they're wanting to leverage technology on a regular basis for classroom instruction. So the focus there tends to be thinking about ways that they can take what they do on a regular basis instructionally, leverage technology, and at the same time be building digital skills. In a similar manner, and thinking about your learners, what they're coming to seeking, what is available to them, and how you can help them both use the tools that might be available to them only in an online or digital environment, but also, again, just thinking about being mindful, what digital skills does that require? It really helps bridge. There's a very intentional naming of this toolkit, bridge that delta between the skills learners may have or may want, and what it is that you can provide based on how you are engaging with that learner. So I'm going to walk through two different videos because I want to really start with thinking about what are digital skills? Like what does this even mean? Because that is the basis of how we started Bridges. Bridges actually started simply with us identifying and adapting a digital skills framework because within our work, what we recognized was many instructors recognize the need to be developing digital skills in learners and to be using technology. But then it came to the point of, well, what are the digital skills? It's easy, not easy, but it's easy to identify, say, reading goals for students because we have reading standards, or math goals for students because we have math standards, or we have assessments that we know that they're trying to pass. The digital skills area is a little bit more unclear and also constantly evolving. And so it's really important for us to start with thinking about what do I mean by digital skills? So I'm going to show two videos. Both of these videos do not have sound, so don't worry about not hearing anything. There is no sound, but I want you to watch, see what's happening in the video, and then in the chat, identify what digital skills do you see happening, or that what does this person need in order to do what you are actually watching. So here's the first one. All right, so that's the video. That's video one. What digital skills did you see at play? Using a mobile device, social media, finding an app on a phone, opening the app, scrolling, typing, recognizing, oh, this is so good. Uploading a video file, posting information, taking video. And I want to recognize like some great language in here. Icons, scroll, mobile device, posting and uploading. All of those are really critical areas here too, because language is a very important part of really making sure that the skills are internalized and not just memorized. If I know what I'm doing when I'm uploading something on Facebook or Instagram or something else, there's other areas that are maybe more meaningful, like say job posting sites or just career sites where you might need to upload a resume. And knowing that term is a really important skill. Just knowing what that means and where you're going to see that being something that you can do in digital environments. So here's the second video. Again, no sound. So I'm going to play this. All right, and that's this second video. So what skills did you see at play here? Navigating menus, typing, word processing, computer storage, formatting text, digital archiving, turning on the computer, finding and opening Word, starting a new document, applying fonts, so formatting, finding and opening folders. Well, folder and file management is like my nemesis, particularly when you work in a team setting on a cloud environment. Um, creating a numbered list, saving a file under documents. So all of these are great skills. And I show this in particular because it's not on a mobile device for one. A lot of these skills are skills that are very transferable and necessary in workplace and in career environments. I also show this because of the fact that now you're in a library setting. So my very hopeful, strong assumption is that you do have online access in that facility. But if you are working with learners who are maybe you're not in online environments all the time, that many of the skills here, all of the skills here really don't require online access, right? So some basic tools that might be ubiquitous if a learner does have a device, that's obviously a first step, or a laptop or a computer of some sort, Chromebook maybe. There's definite skills that they can learn, in this case, that are very transferable. So organizing files and folders, formatting text, being able to, again, open and find a software or application from a menu. So again, all of these things, transferable skills, and in this case, something that can be done in offline environments. And so what our goal here with Bridges is to transition our thinking from learners coming to us and just building digital skills and the how-tos to moving towards resilience. And so not just the how-tos, but understanding and being proficient in and having the right mindset for being what we call digital resilient in their use of technology. So as part of Bridges in our broader work, we use UNESCO's definition of digital skills as being defined as the range of abilities to use devices, to use communication tools and networks to access and manage information. And so as you articulated in your identification of the skills in the first example, that involves things like taking photos with a device, uploading photos, sharing, opening up an application from an app icon. In a desktop environment, that might be just the ins and outs of using common software applications, in particular productivity applications, such as Word or Google Docs or Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets. When we think about digital literacy, that kind of next step beyond just proficiency, this looks at adding more cognitive and technical skills that need to be layered into the how-tos. So it's not just about knowing what to do in this particular situation when I'm given this device in this setting. But it's also some decision making that requires some thinking that might not be technical. So in the terms of looking at the Facebook example, what social media platform should I post something to, or should I even post this at all? So knowing when not to post is a really important skill that some people have, some people don't. And then even in the other example, so as I said, you hopefully do have online access, say, in your facility, but it doesn't mean that learners are necessarily saving files to the computer that they're working on, maybe in a library. So where do I save? If they're on their own computer, obviously they notice they can save to the files and folders on their machine, but they could also be saving to a cloud or to some USB device so that it's a transferable file that they can bring from the library to home and back. So that requires some thinking about contextual thinking that happens in those scenarios. When we're looking at digital resilience, this is getting at really being adaptable and understanding changing digital skill demands. Resilience to me is knowing that when you are encountering a new technology in a new setting, you are coming to the table with the skills or mindset, at least, to know that I have the ability to do this. I just need to figure it out. And so when we're thinking about like things like uploading and sharing and communicating via social media, that same kind of tool, that same interface, the same capabilities that exist in Facebook, those are available in other environments as well. If students are in an education setting where they're doing any sort of online learning, they very likely are using a learning management system. So there's communication tools in there, and you're communicating out to many people and not just one to one. You are uploading files sometimes to submit assignments. Same thing with career. Your communication on that is related to personal networking, but it's also related to broadly maybe communicating out about things and needing to be mindful of when and where it's appropriate. But it is the same set of skills. And so if you know how to use Facebook, you technically have the exact set of tools that you need to be engaged with any of these other platforms because the things you're doing on them are the same, they're just different contexts. So resilience is a matter of being able to engage in these new environments and to not just be absolutely shell-shocked every time you do so. In looking at the Word example, those formatting tools that the person used to both create the heading of the file title name, as well as to format that numbered list. That toolbar is ubiquitous. So anytime that you're encountering the ability to add text to something, you typically have access to formatting tools that allow you to adjust. And so that's the point of that example, is that if someone's resilient, they can know that if I'm in an environment where I can add text, I typically have the ability to do some level of formatting, whether it just be basic boldfacing or italicizing, or maybe even hyperlinking. And so that's what we mean by resilience. And so that's why we call Bridges a digital resilience toolkit, because it does have how-to guidance and it does have all sorts of resources that get at the how to create an email, how to send an email, how to format text. But the compendium of materials in here are really intended for any practitioner that's working with learners in a meaningful and sustained way, to be able to work that learner towards digital resilience. So as I mentioned earlier, the toolkit itself started with a set of 75, a framework that we had adapted that was originally created by University of Washington and City of Seattle. And we chose this framework as the basis for Bridges because as part of a research study, City of Seattle and University of Washington analyzed a number of different frameworks that were already in place, as well as assessments being used for digital skills and curriculum being used for digital skills. And they created an aggregate, or what they called the comparison framework, of looking at which skills were most commonly sought after or taught or assessed in these different resources. And they winnowed that down to 10 domains that you see here on the right. And within those 10 domains, 75 skills. So foundational skills like gateway skills, using a mobile device, understanding how to maintain your device, and privacy and security. These are things that everyone needs to know regardless of what they're using. Getting into more productivity type skills, communication, creating digital content, and workplace and productivity applications like the Google suite of tools, the Microsoft suite of tools is another set of domains. And then continued learning or independent learning skills. So information skills, understanding how to evaluate and decipher information, lifelong learning skills, as well as being aware of the things that one can do online. So we also do a lot of digital equity work, and we do encounter many people who just don't want to be online and don't see the value of being online. So that sometimes is a starting point, that barrier needs to be overcome. And so, look, there's lots of resources here that help people recognize some of the things that they can do online. And it's not that we're necessarily pushing for everyone to be online all the time, but recognizing that there's absolute benefits, and you sometimes are being left out of being active in your community and being able to accomplish things efficiently that you may not be able to do if you are not at least aware of what you can do online. So we're going to take a look at the Bridges framework now. And I am going to hopefully escape out of this. And I thought I had this tab open, but I must have accidentally closed it. So I'm going to share in the chat the link to Bridges right now. And I'm going to ask for you to click on that. And then once you've done that, if you click on Explore Bridges, that's going to bring us to a PDF that is the toolkit. Now you can download this right now if you'd like, so you have it available to you on your device. Two things to note, literally you'll see this was last updated today because we just did add a set of resources that we'll look at in a moment. In the very near future, this will actually also be available as a Google Doc so that folks can adapt it as they see fit or take bits and pieces of it and use it however they want. It is an open framework. We are very adamant that we don't own this, that this is a guide and that we want people to be adapting it and using it in the ways that they see fit for their context. But I'm going to ask then, once you've opened it, and again, if you're on the Bridges website that I just linked, this is the link that you'll click. I sent you to this page as opposed directly to the file because you'll see there's other resources here that we are going to be walking through today. But yeah, if you click on this, that will bring you to this file, and I'm going to ask you to move on down to page 18. So I will add this link as well, but just know this is linked from that first link. So page 18 of this. And so what you'll see here is that there's those 10 domains on page 18. And then you'll see details of the 75 skills that I talked about within the framework. So I want you to just spend 1 minute scrolling through and just scanning what you see in these 10 domains. And I'll do so on screen if you don't want to do it on your own. So these are in alphabetical order in terms of the domains. Here's communication. Here's creation. I can zoom this in a little bit. Device ownership. Gateway skills. And I do encourage you to have this open because we will be doing some interactive activities in a second that are asking you to identify certain skills from the framework. So these are like basic skills and just foundational. Here are information skills. I would guess this is very acutely of interest to the folks on this call, given your setting. Lifelong learning. Mobile. Online life. Two more. So this is getting the things you can do online, privacy and security, and then workplace and productivity. So those are the 10 domains. All right, so I'm going to go back to here. And now that we've looked at that, and hopefully you do have this open, we'll start with scenario 1. So looking at the Bridges framework and the skills within there, what skills from Bridges did you see happening in scenario 1? You did articulate them like in an open format, but looking at the skills framework that I just walked through, can you identify a specific skill from Bridges that was at play in either of these scenarios? I'm not even going to necessarily focus on one. So mobile, so that's a domain. So understanding the thing with communication. So these are the domain level aspects. Within communication, there are some specific posts on social media. I think that's CO4. Yes, I'm a weirdo. I've memorized many of these skills. Foundational gateway skills. Um, Others you see. Device ownership. Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes like maintaining files and folders, files on a device as opposed to in a environment is certainly something people need to think about when you have limited storage on a device. Um, Creation skills. Yep. So this is creating documents and this is creating original content. This is also creating content, right? You're creating a video, you're creating media, and then you're sharing it. So you're doing creation skills and you're sharing, which is communication skills, posting on social media. So again, the reason I'm doing this is so that we can put more words and having a framework that articulates these specific skills and terminology, which we're going to also look at, makes it easier for us to provide language on what it is learners are doing when they're using technology. Awesome. Thank you, Yasen. Yeah, that's perfect. These are specific skills. But it also allows us to frame that. And it also allows us to identify things that maybe multiple learners are coming to the table needing, so that we have clarity on the specifics of the skill. And then again, you're going to now see a bunch of resources that align to these skills and make it really beneficial to you. The other thing I actually wanted to point out, and I forgot to when I was talking about these two scenarios, is when we're talking about digital skills, if you have a framework like we just looked at your disposal, there's two things that are helpful for you. One is many of your learners probably come to you knowing how to do scenario one. But having a framework allows you to put like the terminology and identify the skills that learners are coming to you with. It's really helpful to be able to acknowledge what somebody has so that that just enables them and adds confidence to them when using digital skills or digital tools, excuse me. So having a framework allows you to put language to the skills a learner already has, as well as on the right-hand side, oftentimes the skills a learner may need. And so it creates definition for both the learner and for you in terms of helping them define that. So Bridges is a toolkit, as I said. So it's not just that framework. It is that's one element of the framework. And the framework provides skills definitions, and it also provides tangible examples, which we're going to look at in a second. So every single one of those skills, when we dive deeper, provides I can statements for what it means to apply or use that skill in work settings, in life settings, in educational settings. It also has examples I can statements for teachers and trainers. So sometimes these things are a little bit obscure in terms of, well, I don't know what that means in terms of this being a skill. So there's definitive and contextualized examples so that you can actually put some more meaning behind what this skill actually means in practice. And then there's a comprehensive set of resources that go along with this, both learning resources and goal setting resources that we're now going to walk through for each of the skills so that you can find the things that are going to be best suited for you and for the learners that you work with. So these are the 7 main aspects of the Bridges toolkit that we're now going to walk through in the second half. So we'll look at the framework again, but see just what's in there in terms of the more detailed definitions and examples. But then we're going to look at these resources here for defining digital skills. So these first 3 are really helpful for you to define the digital skills that you're focused on. And the second half of these are tools and resources in Bridges for developing those digital skills. And all of these are aligned to that framework that we just looked at. And that's the really nice part, is that whatever it is you're trying to do, they all come back to this set of 75 skills in the framework. So I'm going to hop off into a Padlet and I'm going to share this with you now. We're going to do a very quick exercise just for time's sake. Copy link to board. It's not one. Copy link to board. There we go. I'm just going to see if this works. Oh, that does work. Okay. Save and send. Sorry, it was looking like the full link was not pasting. But this is a tool called Padlet, and it's an open collaboration board. And we're going to use this to walk through all of the different resources. And I want to do it, as I said from the start, and let me just make sure that you have access. Where are my settings here? Oh, I'm in a different browser. That's why. Settings. Sorry, share. You can write, link privacy. I'll just make this completely public, but hopefully folks are popping into this Padlet. Because this is going to give you access to all the resources kind of right here, but then also the ability to comment as we walk through this, each one. So I believe I should see people popping up here. But I don't know, maybe that's not, Padlet's been changing very regularly. Are people in the Padlet? Can you just respond in the chat? No, you don't have to sign up. You should just be able to access it. Okay, people are in there. In the past, there's like little icons like Google where you see you'll see things like I'm the anonymous ocelot here. Story of my life, anonymous ocelot. All right. So in the Bridges framework, as I mentioned, we have this set of 75 skills, and you saw them all condensed. But for each of those skills, as I mentioned, there are examples that can be used as just providing tangible examples for folks so they understand what it is. But also, we've seen people start using these as the basis for sort of a performance-based activity for students to do. So instead of taking a test on do you know this digital skill, asking students to do specific things like these that you could observe and see if they know how to do this. And so we're going to look at 3 different learners. I want to use this to sort of frame how you're approaching this, or maybe you have a learner in mind already. But in thinking about what digital skills somebody needs, we're going to look at 3 different people here. So Farhana is an Afghan refugee who is comfortable using her mobile device, but has never used a computer. She wants to learn how to use a computer so she can begin exploring local services. So that's Farhana. Alejandro is a US citizen from Mexico, and he's been looking for a part-time job, but has been told repeatedly that he has to apply online. And our third learner is Akisha. So Akisha has enrolled in the school's HighFlex GED program. In the program, students have the option to attend classes remotely via Zoom, and students are expected to submit assignments via the school's learning management system. So now let's go into the Padlet. And on the left-hand side, you'll see the link to Bridges that I shared with you earlier. So you already have this open, but in this left-hand column, if you can go ahead and add comments based on the 3 descriptions that we just looked at. What are the key skills for Hannah, for Alejandro, and for Aikisha? And maybe you just pick one learner that resonated with you, but all you have to do to add a comment is click on the add comment here, and it will add your comment. So again, thinking of the Bridges digital skills, so these skills, what are the necessary skills for Hannah? So she's the one comfortable using her mobile device, but not using a computer. She wants to learn how to use a computer to access community services. Alejandro is being told repeatedly he needs to apply for jobs online. And Akisha needs to learn how to be able to participate in online learning for her GED program. I see some great information skills. Awesome. Understanding your computer, using the mouse and keyboard, device ownership. So those are specifics for HANA. Key skills for I love the anonymous names on here. Um, Filling out forms, uploading files, creating a resume. Excellent. And a lot of these skills, friendly mongoose, a lot of those skills are in the workplace and productivity domain. So applying for jobs online. Excellent. And we see gateway skills. So gateway skills are really like that's the domain in particular that's going to be most important for Freyhana. For Alejandro, it looks like there's some basic skills, some information skills, definitely, and then workplace and productivity skills. What about Keisha? Anyone have things that stand out for Keisha? Producing multimedia. Yep, that is definitely one. Because oftentimes assignments probably involve using media. I see some things being added here, finding a job online, adapting to new technology. That's great. Okay. Yeah, this is just, I just want to immerse you as much as possible into the framework itself, because again, that is the starting point for all of these other materials that are available. So great, thank you. So one of the things, actually, the reason there's a date stamp on the current version that you're looking at as December 5th is because we just added inclusive practices. So one of the things that we recognize is that learners are coming to the table with all sorts of different contexts and aims and goals and even mindsets around technology use. And that oftentimes is due to any number of factors. So we recognize that there's a need to adapt what you're doing with learners with technology based on those contexts. So the inclusive practices section of every domain, or every, excuse me, yeah, every domain within the framework are designed to identify why the skills in each domain are needed for digital equity. So we're focusing on not just here are skills that are needed, but thinking about what do these mean in the context of digital equity. And then within that, then thinking about what do practitioners need to be aware of before teaching. And so we consider different populations. NTIA defines these as covered populations, but racial and ethnic minorities, senior citizens, people who have disabilities, people who have limited or no online access. So being aware of the barriers that might be at play or the specific and special situations that people may be coming with, making sure that programs and practitioners are aware of that when they're developing these skills so that they're making sure to be equitable in the way that they're supporting their learners. And then actually strategies for taking action. So every single domain in the framework, and I'm going to toggle now a little bit back and forth, but once we actually dive into the domain, here we see the list of skills in communication. Here we see all of those examples. So remember, we started on page 18. I've now made my way into the framework. And then here we get into this inclusive practices section. So it has this context of why it's important, awareness around what people need to be aware of, and then how to take action, both as an instructor or a trainer, but also in the design of your program. And so I don't know why it keeps bouncing me out of that. That's new. So for example, an awareness layer of the communication skills is that some learners social media may be their main communication tools, and we do see that for a lot of folks, particularly folks who are not US born or even those that are US born. But others might be wary of using social media. So you have two different sets of mindsets, and a lot of that can be cultural or just learned experience or what they were using before they came to the US, if we're dealing with immigrant populations. And then steps for taking action on that is, again, respecting folks in terms of where they are with social media and that they have a right to choose whether and how they use social media. Um, while it's important to teach skills in using social media, right? Is I don't think it's appropriate to require people to be on social media. I'm someone who does not use social media except for LinkedIn because I recognize that that has value for me and my career, and so that I should be on that. But the skills that one needs for social media can still be developed even without requiring learners to be on social media. So there's obviously information literacy skills that come with social media use that can be demonstrated without a learner having to be on social media. We're using Padlet right now, and while it's not social media, there are many things that are happening in Padlet or even in the chat that are similar in a way to social media. You're communicating with a broad group as opposed to one-to-one communication. That's one of the most important layers of social media is understanding the communication, the difference between communicating one-on-one in a closed setting that's not broadcast to the world, as opposed to communicating in a setting like we are right now through our Zoom chat and through Padlet. And what does netiquette mean in those different environments? So all of the domains have a set of inclusive practices that provide these practical actions that programs and practitioners can take to make sure that they're being equitable in their development of digital skills. So all of the domains also have a vocabulary section. So if you continue to scroll, you'll see there's a set of vocabulary terms for communication, and you'll see there's also a set of tools. The purpose of the tools section is to help folks understand what learners might want to be using, and knowing that there are inherent skills within that domain that they need to know for using that tool, or potentially skills that practitioners or you as a literacy coach, if you want to start engaging with your learners using specific digital tools, this helps you know, okay, if you're using this tool, think about what skills within this domain you could actually be developing by engaging in some sort of routine that you might have with your learners. Maybe that is scheduling, or maybe that is just ongoing asynchronous communication. Selecting a tool that's going to be useful and that both you and the learner are able to use and is accessible to both of you, and then thinking about, okay, well, what skills does that require, and making sure that that's clarified for the learner. So every domain has inclusive practices, has vocabulary terminology, and has tools. The second thing that we have are these checklists for a self-assessment and goal setting. And so what you'll see here is a link to a file that I will open, just so you see what this looks like. It is a Google Sheet, and it is something that you can file, make a copy of, and adapt for your own use. So you'll see there's a set of user-specific checklists, and these are based on, sorry, oh gosh, I don't know why this is a thing. Based on different learner types, which skills from the framework are best suited or most appropriate or might be a focus for these different learner types. You'll also see the full checklist and all of the I can statements here. And then you'll also see this third tab, which has a set of checklist templates that you could use. So these could be used for self-assessment, for intake, if you want to understand what the learner is coming with. They're all focused on some of the more basic foundational skills, but accessing the internet, using the internet, an interesting one called the Minimum Digital Living Standard checklist. And so all of these are actually adaptable as Google Docs templates that you can download as Word docs, or that you can use as is, or you can make a copy of and then adapt as you see fit. And it identifies things a learner might want to do or need to do. And this is based again on something called the Minimum Digital Living Standard, which I think is a really interesting list that comes out of the UK. But it also identifies the skill or skills that the person needs in order to do these things. So it allows you to engage in goal setting by helping learners identify what they know how to do or what they might want to do but don't know how to do. And it connects you directly with what skills they need. Now, in the future, these will all be linked, and this is in the near future, to a specific place in our digital skills library where you're actually going to be able to link to a set of resources that are free and available and all aligned to get an email account in this case. And we'll look at the digital skills library in a second. So this is a bunch of different, I'm going to close this because this is going to get annoying, checklists that you can use for communication, for distance learning, and then some foundational using and accessing the internet and just basic overall set of skills for living in a digital world, that minimum digital living standard framework. So that's what those self-assessments are. And then probably less important to you, I don't know that you use any assessments based on what I saw your roles are. But if you are familiar with a test called the North Star Digital Literacy Assessment, that is a free set of assessment modules on digital skills that is very widely used in my adult education world. And so we have crosswalks of the North Star test to Bridges so that when students take those modules and get a score report, they can see connections to Bridges and find resources that might be helpful for learning those skills. So if you don't use North Star, I would encourage you to check it out. It's not part of Bridges. It's run by Literacy Minnesota. But it is a very, very widely used digital skills assessment. The modules take about maybe 20 to 30 minutes to complete. It is, again, completely free. And you may actually have, depending on I don't know if California, through the library system, has a free license, but many states have or even regions will buy licenses that organizations within their region can access. The licensed version has more robust tools, but even the free version, you can take a digital skill assessment and you get a score report on mastered skills as well as skills that a learner might need to work on. And so for each one of these assessments, we have the North Star skill and then the relevant Bridges skills that align. So those are all resources to support the identification of skill needs and maybe goal setting of skills for learners. Now we're going to look at tools that you can use for building digital skills. And the big one is our digital skills library. So the digital skills library is currently, if you're on Bridges, it's actually the home base here. You'll see that the URL that I'd shared was digitalskillslibrary.org/Bridges. We recognize that more people are probably interested in the library itself as it is than Bridges, but we hope that people use the two hand in hand. But so Digital Skills Library is an open library that allows you to search by skill or keyword, say password, and find free and open education resources that align to that particular skill or keyword. And so when you use it, you can search by keyword, you can search by skill, and then if you have a particular resource that you really like, you can filter by that. There are a number of Spanish language resources in there and a few others. We're continuing to try to grow that. But you can filter, maybe you want video content, you can filter by format as well. But this allows you to search based on skill or anything and find resources that you could use for explicit skill instruction with learners. And so there's always a link to the activity as well as just details around it, including the skill or skills that it aligns to. So the library itself lives on its own, but we are building out, and in the next month, we'll have an interactive version of Bridges that allows you online to actually navigate in our online version of this to a skill. And then on that skill page, you will see, say, communicate effectively will be at the top of the page. And then you'll actually see all of the resources that align to communicate effectively below it. So Bev, thank you for that detail around, oh, well, a little too late. That's too bad. The free version is great. I'm just going to say, so I do encourage folks to check out North Star. But what's nice about this is once this is interactive, this will be skill by skill. You'll be able to see the resources that align, and you'll be able to direct link to that page. So if a learner needs to work on this, you could send them to a page that has just a bunch of resources for them to explore on their own, or you can obviously work with them to identify ones that are going to be helpful for them. And the goal of the Digital Skills Library is really that we know that there's not one resource that works for every learner all the time. And so, based on this is GCF has great video content and great articles. The digitallearn.org is actually a public library association initiative. So these are a bunch of modules that were developed by PLA. And many of them are available in English and Spanish. So, and they are a little bit more foundational, I feel, than GCF Learn Free or GCF Global. Oops, didn't mean to do that. So we also, within the library, have a number of resources to support different contexts. So we're in the process of adding about 400 videos from International Rescue Committee that are available in a variety of languages for many of the topics, and that's a really exciting add. As well as we do have an offline resources list, and you have the link in the slides here. So these are all resources that if you have learners that maybe are working in offline environments, we in particular developed this as part of a corrections initiative that we're working on, but helping folks know that these are skills, you can develop digital skills even in offline environments. Another resource that's in the toolkit is the Digital Skills Glossary. And this is an open education resource that was developed actually by educators through Service Learning Professional Development that we run. And the aim of this Digital Skills Glossary is, and if you go back to where we were, it's actually listed right here. All of these things are linked in that framework file. I just want to make sure that you understand that. So we actually go back up to the top of the PDF. And the interactive version, all of this will be all hyperlinked. But if you go to the top of the PDF, everything we've been walking through is linked in the first couple pages. So those crosswalks are linked, the checklists are linked, framework is in this document itself. The link to the library is here, the link to the glossary is here, and the link to another resource that I'm about to cover is listed here as well. But the glossary is a really great resource for getting at that terminology if you are doing any sort of explicit instruction with learners. So all of the domains have that vocabulary, and so every single one of the domains has a set of slides that go with it. There's also just a full set of slides that has things organized by theme. And this can actually be downloaded in PDF. And if you do so, it is an interactive offline resource. But basically, the glossary is organized by theme. It's going to be, of course, slow to load here. And if you are working in this mode, you can click on any of the themes within the file, maybe, and then get to that particular theme. And then it's very slow right now. Every single term within that domain is listed here. And then you have a definition, what it is in the sentence, and then a visual example. There's also audio that links to how to pronounce each one of those things. These are all completely downloadable, so you can mix and match and create slides for the terms that you want learners to know. And adapt that as your own. Even switch out the images if you have something more relevant, or even switch out the sentences if there's something that's more relevant and related to your context. We've actually, Ventura County Chamber of Commerce developed an entire curriculum, foundational skills curriculum, using these slides. And they've adapted many of them in Spanish, which is something that we'll be adding at the start of next year, which is really exciting. So that is a resource. And again, all of those terms are listed, and the slides are listed within the, say, communication domain. You have direct access within that PDF that you looked at originally. The glossary also has, on the page that I was on, a set of activities. There's an instructor guide that basically has activities that leverage those terms and have activities to help develop those terms and build resilience at the same time. Whether that's understanding what this icon means or what post means, and understanding that that's a common feature across multiple things, like posting the message on Facebook and that video at the start, or building that visual recognition of icons and understanding that if you see this, this is what that means, because the icon is a ubiquitous way of communicating these terms that might not be normally used in our everyday language. I'm not going to spend much time on this, but I will just say that there is what's called an EdTech Integration Strategy Toolkit. This is designed specifically for instructional settings, more like classroom settings, but if you remember, I said earlier, when thinking about the tools, if you want to be leveraging technology with, say, an individual learner, if you're working one-to-one, thinking about ways that you can create routines that are going to be things that you do on a regular basis with learners, that leverage a tool that's accessible to them and that you can use on a repeat basis, so that it's not creating barriers to them being able to use the technology or tool, but then also just considering what digital skills they're developing. So this actually is its own app. And again, it's linked in the toolkit. All of these routines are actually going to be added into the interactive framework. So you could use the app alone as it is, similar to the digital skills library, but it's actually also going to be integrated into the Bridges framework. And then finally, last month, we did a couple webinars on Skill Blocks. Skill Blocks is a tool that allows you to build digital skills lessons, or lessons for reading, or any other thing. But everything in the digital skills library is also in Skill Blocks. It's just a database, essentially, where you can actually, instead of just sending a learner to a page with a bunch of activities that align to that skill, or even just sending individual activities, you can actually create a playlist of activities that you want learners to work through, or that you might want them to reference for a particular skill that they need. And then they can work through these to develop those skills. So you're sort of constructing from the digital skills library, if you will, a playlist that learners might be able to work through. So these are some sample lessons that actually get into really more detailed digital skill development that you can just explore on your own. And then just to really, because I know we're at time, this is more for our instructors, but if you are working in instructional environments, we do have an EdTech Integration Action Plan, and this is designed for you to think through skills that you want to prioritize for your instruction. We've worked in actually international contexts as well as US contexts with teachers to have them build out an action plan for themselves for their upcoming school year, for example, and thinking about how to prioritize the skills they want to work on, and then leverage the tools that we just looked at in Bridges to develop those skills with their learners. And then again, as I noted, in the next month, we finally will be pushing live the online version of Bridges, which will allow you to click through skills, vocabulary, tools, resources, inclusive practices, all in one place. I cannot wait for that. It's taken longer than I wanted, but it will be a beautiful thing once it's ready. And so you'll be able to navigate all of these things integrated into one cohesive website. And again, the example I gave earlier is you'll be able to drill down to a skill such as this, see those examples, see all the learning activities that can be used for it, and you could share this with a learner or with another instructor or tutor. So that's it. We are at the hour. Again, my name is Jeff Gumis. My email address is here. You have it. I will actually make sure to, if you didn't grab it at the start, I'll share this link to the deck, and I know that they'll be sending it out as a follow-up as well. But that is the link to the deck. So all of these links that you just looked at are in there. And you can feel free to contact me at any time if you have questions.